Have you ever noticed how the spiritual path itself can become another form of seeking? How even our efforts to dissolve the ego can become the ego's most sophisticated disguise? This profound paradox lies at the heart of one of Ramana Maharshi's most penetrating insights, what has come to be known as the ego's last trick. Ramana Maharshi, the revered sage of Arunachala, who lived from 1879 to 1950, spent most of his life at the holy mountain of Arunachala in South India. His teaching was remarkably simple, yet devastatingly direct. Inquire into the nature of the self by asking, "Who am I?" But within this simplicity lay a crucial warning about the spiritual journey itself. In his teachings, particularly recorded in works like Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi and The Spiritual Teaching of Ramana Maharshi, he pointed to a subtle trap. The ego, that sense of being a separate individual self, is remarkably cunning. When we begin spiritual practice, we naturally think, "I am seeking enlightenment. I am meditating. I am becoming more spiritual." But notice what's happening here. The I is still firmly in place, now wearing spiritual robes. Ramana explained that the ego feeds on activity, even spiritual activity. It loves the idea of progress, of becoming something better, of achieving realization. This is the ego's last trick. It presents itself as the seeker of truth, when in fact it is the very obstacle to truth. The ego cannot find what lies beyond itself, because it would mean its own dissolution. He would often say that the ego is like a thief pretending to be a policeman to catch the thief himself. It's absurd, yet this is precisely what happens in most spiritual seeking. The ego investigates itself, tries to improve itself, attempts to transcend itself, all while remaining firmly the doer of these actions. So, what's the solution? Ramana's teaching was radical in its simplicity. Instead of the ego trying to destroy itself, which is impossible, simply inquire into its nature. Turn the attention back to the one who is seeking. Ask, "Who am I?" Not as a philosophical question, but as a direct investigation. Who is this I that wants enlightenment? Where does it arise from? When you look for it directly, what do you actually find? This inquiry is different from spiritual effort because it's not about adding anything or achieving anything. It's about seeing through the fundamental illusion. When you genuinely investigate, you discover that this separate self you've taken yourself to be has no independent existence. It's a thought, a habit, a construct, not your true nature. Ramana taught that the self, our true nature, is already present, already realized. It's not something to be attained in the future. The only problem is that the ego creates the illusion of separation and then tries to bridge that separation through various practices and achievements. This seeking itself is the ego's last trick, keeping us perpetually occupied in becoming what we already are. The wisdom here is profound. We don't need to wait until we're perfect or until the ego is completely gone. The recognition of our true nature is available right now, prior to all seeking, prior to the arising of the ego itself. When the ego finally exhausts itself in the inquiry, "Who am I?" when it turns back to find its source, it dissolves like a wave returning to the ocean. This is why Ramana called self-inquiry the direct path. It doesn't strengthen the ego with spiritual accomplishments. It undermines the ego's fundamental assumption that there is a separate person who needs to do something to become whole. In the light of genuine inquiry, both the seeker and the sought are revealed as movements within the one self. The ego's last trick, then, is making spirituality itself into another project, another story of me and my progress. True freedom lies not in the ego becoming enlightened, but in recognizing that what you truly are was never bound in the first place.